Are your production targets actually helping your team, or are they holding them back? In this episode of Mic Drop Insights and Lessons from CI Thought Leaders, I sit with David McNally. He's a data expert and the founder and owner of Agile Intelligence. And he sits down and shares with me how he helped one organization boost their production by 17% just by how they set their targets. Now, if you're a continuous improvement expert or if you're interested in production improvement, then you're going to want to listen to what David has to share. My name is Gary Cox. I'm your host. I'm also the author of the book, Cultivating Champions of CI, a leader's toolbox for creating a continuous improvement culture. Let's jump into what David and I talked about.
So Colin Rayner tells the story about, he says, I don't know what it was, David, but when I came to meet with him in 2021, he said there was about 7 or 8 other digital transformation companies that were knocking on my door at the same time. He said, and every one of them came in the door saying, we've got the system for you. We've done it for others. We can do it for you. And this is how we're going to do it. And he said, not long into the conversation, right, it would become a, well, what about this? Oh, well, we can't do that. Well, what about that? Well, we can't do that for you either. He said, David, what I liked about Agile and your approach was you came to me and you set a blank sheet of paper down. And he said, here's the crayons, draw your box and we'll fit into it. Not here's a box that's already drawn. Now you fit into our box, right? And that's been the approach. And again, we learned that, through my experience. This ain't my first kick at the cat. I've been in this game since about 2003, 2004, right? Working with manufacturers and different companies on real-time data solutions and helping them identify areas for improvement, whether that was a sensor moving through a line, sending a real-time signal back to a Palm Pilot about this big and that thick, showing you where spikes were, where there was too much damage happening, and fine-tuning your processes from there, all the way up to deploying mobile tablets and sensors in operations to be able to capture real-time data. The challenge becomes, does the solution fit you, or do you have to fit into the solution?
That is so critical, even when you think about continuous improvement, right? I was trained and certified in the use of Lean Six Sigma. It comes with a toolbox, but it's not the only toolbox when it comes to driving continuous improvement. And I appreciate and know that. It is the one that I'm most used to and most comfortable with. But it doesn't mean that I don't adapt and, to your point, use the term agile. It doesn't mean that I can't be agile and use other methods and other tools to support organizations in achieving what they want. But the one thing that you and I have in common is the fact that you can't do that effectively without some baseline metrics to know where you're
100%.
at. And
100%.
you got to have a target, and you say, hey, how
100%.
am I doing against where I am to my target, and how do I get there? This is, to me, is where the effectiveness of data comes in.
100%, Gary. I would agree with you 100% on that. And, I think that there's a lot of operations, you may agree with this, there's a lot of operations that you go into that think they have a standard, that think they have a baseline, but they really don't, right? They may have an average baseline. I could think of one operation I went into here last fall, and they had their KPI board up and they had their target up there, and, it was certain kilograms per day that they were targeting to hit. And these guys have about 15, 16, maybe upwards of 20 different SKUs. And I had asked them specifically, so that target up there, what SKU are you handling today? Oh, we're doing this product today. Okay, so that target up there is to be able to hit that product. Well, no. Oh, well, what's the target for? Well, that target is to be able to hit the average. And of all the products that we do, that's the average that we want to hit. And I said, okay, well, that's interesting. So let's talk about that a little bit. I said, so when your team comes in and sees that target, the SKU you're handling today, can you achieve that number? Oh, no, not a chance. With this SKU, we never come close to it. It's like, well, then why is that the target for today?
Right.
But that's the average target that we want to hit. But your team is walking in the door. They're looking at that target. They're looking at today's product that you're handling, and they're thinking, there's no way we're going to hit that target. So it's meaningless to them.
It is. Right? And the visualization, you talk about, that target on the wall or whatever that is, whether it's on a whiteboard, somebody's written a value that they're, or number of units or kilograms or whatever it is, or whether it's a digital format, like a screen, right? I think the importance of keeping it current is
Yeah.
critical. And I think that's where the digital real-time information comes to play, right?
Yeah.
When I'm working with clients who don't have a digital solution and are doing it on a whiteboard or doing it that way, we're saying you need to be doing that as often as you can do that, and
That's
do
right.
that to keep people informed, because it's critical about keeping people informed. So if, for
100%.
example, you take, a break after an hour or 2 hours, during that break, somebody should be updating the information. People come back from
Yeah.
their break, they should know, okay, we achieved what we were supposed to achieve before the break, or they know that they didn't. And what's the response to that?
And relevancy to that, Gary, you're right on the money. And talk about a timely topic. You're talking about breaks and achieving targets. I literally got off a call this morning with one of my customers where that was the topic, was they're capturing their production time. They use this visual management and the data collection that they're doing in order to drive employee performance. So piece counts an hour, right? What employee at this station is doing how many piece counts an hour? What employee at that station is doing how many piece counts an hour? And those who reach the target and exceed it get a bonus. And those who don't, obviously don't make more money. So that's a whole other conversation. But one of the things we were talking about was that time, that production time, the actual production time.
Right.
So if they're on the line and the production report is showing 9 hours, but they actually took an hour's worth of breaks and lunches,
Right.
well, why is that calculated into the equation? It should be removed. So they have that actual production time. So it's just funny you mentioned that, because it's talk about time. Do you think we planned that or something? But with the company who had the target on the board that was an average, right?
Right.
We worked with them, and that was just written down. And we worked with them in order for them to start using our solution. But whether it's agile or whether it's, a piece of paper or whatever it is you're using, it's just about getting the relevancy to get them to understand what the target was for each one of those SKUs as they handled it. And then, to your point, get that number up that's more relevant, that's more achievable, that's not just fluff. I met with them 2 weeks ago. Since that meeting that we've had with them, their production has been up to their production rose 17% in that time frame.
That's great. Incredible. Yeah.
Right.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
Small company, but the production manager said, he said, everybody's just more aligned right now because we're looking at the data, we understand the data, and it's targets that we can actually hit, and people are seeing it and saying, oh yeah, we can hit or we can beat that target today, right? And he said their production right now, they feel their productions rose about 17% since that engagement. So
that's amazing. If you got value out of that conversation I had with David, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to send us a comment or two. We are absolutely delighted to be able to answer your questions or respond to your comments. And be sure to click the next episode of my conversation with David.